Good evening. It is June 17th, 2026, and the time is now 6 p.m. and I call the regular meeting of ISD 200 School Board to order. Clerk Milner, can you please take attendance?
Director Biermeyer.
Here.
Director Michael Mulder.
Here.
Director Zuzek.
Here.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Here.
Director Bruns.
Here.
And Director Milner here, and absent tonight is Chair Tate.
We also welcome our Superintendent, Werkamp Herman, to the table. I would like to ask everyone who is able to please stand and remove your for the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm looking for a motion on the agenda, please.
Zuzek makes a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Biermeyer seconds.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to welcome everyone who joined us both in the room and online. Thank you for coming tonight and your continued support of ISD 200. First on our agenda, we have our Raider Spotlight with Superintendent Werkamp Herman.
Thank you, members of the board. Welcome to the community. I'd like to introduce tonight Ryan Renicky, our archery coach, to talk about their trip to nationals and give us some information more about their accomplishments this season.
The bar. All right. I wrote notes so I could just read it. So, good evening, members of the school board. My name is Ryan Renicky, and I am the head coach of the Hastings High School and St. Elizabeth Ann Seton School archery teams. I'm here tonight to recognize our student athletes and share highlights from the Raiders' second season. The high school team grew from 21 archers in its inaugural season to 30 archers in its second season. That's a 42% increase in participation. This season, the Raiders shot at least 50,000 arrows in practice, shot 8,670 scored arrows in bullseye tournaments, shot 4,700 scored arrows in 3D tournaments. A highlight of the season occurred at the Beacon Tournament in Roseville, where the Raiders earned their first team podium finish, taking second place in 3D. The Raiders also had their first individual podium finishers at the Beacon Tournament. Lily Shalene, a 10th grade archer, placed 5th in 3D, and Esme Renicky, a 9th grade archer, placed 5th in bullseye. The Raiders teams and individual archers also broke many of the records set during our inaugural season, including establishing new high scores in both bullseye and 3D. Mr. Versland keeps our archery record plaque in his classroom, and I always tell our archers, go and break my plaque, so I have to send it in for updates for the season. Hastings should be proud of its 2-year-old team's performance among many well-established programs. For such a young team, we competed in the middle of the pack all season, and it's exciting to see what this team and its individual archers will accomplish as this program continues to mature. The team entered the Minnesota State Tournament at the end of March strong and once again qualified for nationals in both bullseye and 3D. Then the team traveled to Eastern Nationals in Louisville, Kentucky in May, where they competed in 5 archery tournaments over 2 days. They competed in NASP Bullseye, NASP 3D, Center Shot Bullseye, Center Shot 3D, and the IBO Genesis Indoor World Championship, in which archers shoot 1 arrow at 30 different North American animal 3D targets. At this time, I'd like to recognize several individuals at the high school whose support has been essential for the success of this program. Mrs. Emily Chandler for serving as our club's team advisor, Mr. Trent Hansen for assisting the team with the many details involved in working with Minnesota NASP and the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and Mr. Mike Versland for teaching the 10 hours of in-school archery curriculum required by NASP. Without this support, Hastings High School would not be able to maintain an archery team. Our plans and future visions as coaches for the Raiders archeries tomorrow. In the near future, I will be flying to Daytona Beach, Florida to accompany a St. Elizabeth Ann Seton elementary archer competing at the NASP Championship. This archer placed 5th at nationals, making C school history, and it is exciting to see the success that consistent coaching has produced within the C's program and among our future Raider archers. Several high school coaches are currently working with new volunteer parent coaches and Mr. Hoffman to establish a Hastings Middle School archery competitive team. We just met last night. We are currently seeking a practice space for our future middle school archery team, and we'll be working with community education to secure a location. I would also like to share a vision our coaching staff has for hosting our own NASP tournament here in Hastings. We are targeting 2028 for the inaugural Confluence 300, blending the 3 archery school programs in our community and hosting schools from across Minnesota. I have 3 student athletes that would like to come and speak per the invitation and share about their experience throughout the season. First, Tegan Asher. She's a senior. She just graduated, second-year NASP archer and a team captain.
Hi there, my name is Tegan and I'm one of the captains. Tonight I would just like to share about the season itself and what I benefit as a student athlete. Very early on in the season, we talk about our goals, and our coaches mainly take time out of their day to really focus on our own goals with us. They make it known that it's a passion of theirs, that they just want us to succeed in the best way possible. For instance, like my goals early on was that I wanted to get a perfect 50, and that I really wanted to focus on my aim and my mindset throughout the season, and which I did. One of the tournaments, I had 2 perfect 50s back to back, and my coaches, every single one of them, especially Coach Reneke and Coach Shalene right behind me, really just made an effort through each practice to come up and say hey, what can I help you with? How can I be there to support you? How can you be the best archer you can be? I'd also like to talk about how archery is not a physical sport, but more of a mental sport, and how it's still almost could be arguably much more beneficial than a physical sport. I'm also in softball, show choir, trap, and although those are more of a bodybuilding and really focus on stamina and strength of your body, archery is a completely different component. It focuses on your mind and how you really take to your challenge. Other sports are really a team sport, and although archery is a team sport, it's also a solo sport in a way. You really focus on what you need, and whatever you need helps come together with what your team needs, and we all at the end of the year become such a big family. It's really noticeably different than, let's say, for softball. You still become a family in softball, but archery, we bond much more. You're with each other every single day. Your mistake might not be someone else's mistake, but we take it as a team mistake and we work on it together. So although you're not working on your physical stamina, you're working on your mental mindset, and that has just helped me as a student as well, where I can take time now in my day-to-day school basis and pay more attention to small details rather than larger details. So yes, archery has been super, super great and has helped me in both the classroom and in my own day-to-day basis. Thank you for having us.
Tegan, where are you going next? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm going to Montana State for social work and archery. That too, I'll be doing archery there too. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Thanks, Tegan.
Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to invite up Jack Myrie. Jack Myrie is a graduated senior. He was a second-year NASP archer and also a team captain.
Hey, I'm Jack Myrie. As Ryan said, I'm a graduate of Hastings High School, and I'm also I was a team captain of archery, and this is also my second year. I don't know, I was told to keep this short and sweet, so I really enjoyed archery, just as a sport and as a community. It binds together, and to Tegan's point, it's not only a team sport, but it is a solo sport. But the way I take that is it's an opportunity to help reflect and work on patience, work on determination and not giving up, because it's sometimes it can get really easy to get in your head about oh, I didn't get the score I wanted this time. It can get really easy. But with archery, I've learned to just think that through, be patient, and be more forgiving to myself. And I just, again, like, I don't know if anybody here would be considering that, like, just shooting archery for fun. I personally would do that. I plan on doing that after, once I've graduated high school, which I already have. So, I mean, I'm planning on doing that. Whatchamacallit? I don't know. I really enjoyed archery, and it fit into my schedule really well as well. Like, it's also a place just to escape, just like your mind, just for like an hour or two, you sit and you focus on what you need to shoot and whatnot. So, I personally really enjoyed archery, and I would vouch towards, just getting anybody who wants to, like, be able to get into it, like, give them that opportunity. And, so that's all for me.
Any questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask what you're doing next year.
Well, what am I doing next year? I'm trying to be a carpenter. I'm going to work, like, in the union and whatnot. So I'm currently taking a program called the Goodwill Easter Seals program in Minneapolis. So I have, like, an exam tomorrow. So I'm going to take that so I can get in.
Good luck.
And then, so from then on, I'm going to work this program, and then hopefully, works out. So, yeah.
Thanks, Chad.
Thank you.
All right. All right. And our last student athlete I'm inviting up is Lily Shalene. Lily Shalene is a sophomore. She's a 7th-year NASP archer and holds the school record for the highest score in bullseye.
I apologize, I also wrote stuff down, so I might be glancing down a few times. Like Ryan said, my name is Lily Shalene. I started out by shooting C's for 5 years, 4th to 8th grade, and then I came to the high school, and I'm gonna be a junior next year, so 7 years in total now, just finished, hopefully going as far as I possibly can. I just wanted, honestly, after I stopped at C's, I was really disappointed because I'm like, I didn't know what I physically could do. Archery's always been part of who I am. And so when we started talking about having archery at like Hastings High School, I was fathomed. I didn't know what to think about it. I thought it was the best thing in the world. And finding out that we can make it possible was just a dream come true. I was so happy. Archery has just always been who I am personally for doing it so long. It was the first sport I ever did at a school. And so I got to start with all of my friends, and then leading up to it. Since I was at C's, we had a really, really small community, and the friends that I did know and that were going to Hastings, I could still stay friends with them, knowing that we still had what we like to call our archery family, because archery family is always who you can go back to no matter where you're at, no matter where you are. You can always call them, text them, no matter what, they're there for you. Archery isn't just the sport I do. Like I said before, it's who I am. It's not just for me, it's who I am. It's also the team. Like Jack and Tegan were saying earlier, them being a second year, they knew that they wanted to do it. They came to do it, and they just enjoyed it so much. Once I started, I was a little rough at first, but the more I started doing it, I realized it's just as much of a team sport as it is a solo sport, as Tegan mentioned earlier. It helped me personally learn who I am and like my morals and how I work. It taught me if I'm in a difficult situation, just like I would be on the line, if I'm stressed or if I have anxiety, you take a deep breath. You take a deep breath, you relax, and I've been able to use those certain situations for just my everyday life. If I have a test and I'm very stressed about it, I studied long, but I'm still nervous about it, I can just take a deep breath and be able to relax my body within an instant. It's helped me morally a lot, for sure. And by far, it's not necessarily a physical sport, but it's able to help you mentally. Just like I'm in trap and skeet, just like Tegan is. It's been able to help me with those sports too. But although the archery season has ended, we still are thinking about what we're gonna do next year and how we're gonna make it better. Every year, the goal is just to make sure everyone has a fun time. Fun is the main objective in all of this, because if you don't have fun, then why are you in it? So when everyone has fun and everything goes smoothly, that's when everything is the best that it can be. And we're already thinking about what we're doing next year, so I look forward to aiming high and shooting straight and keeping the goals that I'm setting for myself. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for me?
Can I make a comment? Just invite us again to come to a nearby tournament. I think you invited us to a White Bear Lake one this year.
Yeah, White Bear Lake was the
yeah.
regionals. Yep.
It was on my calendar, and then the weather didn't work out for us.
Yeah, I know there's, typically, that we go all over the state, and we're as far as Princeton, Foley, the state tournament was in Duluth, but I mean, Stillwater's a close one, but I'll give you guys a prize. Faribault, Stillwater, New Prague, White Bear Lake. There are some regional ones that are pretty close. So.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
This sport has taken off so quick. Who were some of the organizations or people that made this happen this quickly to get this success to where it's at already?
So, I mean, it was basically the cadre of C's coaches coming along and maturing with their kids. I mean, they came to me. I'd been 4th year coach at C's at the time, and they're like, "We don't want this to end." I had a son who was in the program, Elliot Renicky. He was in the program, and then COVID kind of hit, and it kind of took him out in 7th grade year. And then 8th grade year, he just did wrestling and said, "I'm not gonna," because it was all virtual tournaments his 8th grade year, and he didn't want to do that because they like going to the other schools and shooting with other kids and being. And these kids meet kids from all over the state. In fact, all over the country now. I have some kids that are texting kids from Missouri they just met, or Mississippi. So it's just a cool opportunity. So they came to us, and so it was basically the C's coaches we're doing both at the same time. So it's me, the Shalene family, Aaron Seafeld, who's got a sophomore at the high school, and he's got 2 incoming freshmen next year now, and Dan Lusky, all got together and got started, and then working with the high school, right? Because the 10 hours of in-school curriculum is always the difficulty, right? You have to have NASP. I think we're the only club that has the 10 hours of in-school required curriculum. So we kind of felt like that was it. We had a practice facility because I approached C's and we used the C's range to shoot, and we rent from C's to shoot there. And they've been awesome to work with, great to partner with. And then I coach both, so it's just been a great relationship. But that 10 hours was kind of a, where do you get that 10 hours in? Worked with Mr. Korkish, Mr. Hanneberg, Mr. Hansen, and Mr. Versland. And I think we got it figured out with Wildlife Bio. We shot there. I don't know if you guys saw the yearbook. Mr. Versland's Wildlife Bio page was our archery range. So that was super cool. So it's just been exciting. I love working with all the teachers and the staff here. So it's just been a great experience.
Y'all are making me want to go out and shoot, and you made me understand why my husband likes to go out and shoot as much. I love that it teaches you how to breathe.
Yep.
I think I think it's huge. So hats off. I think this is a great pursuit.
Well, I want to say congratulations, and I have medallions from us that I'd like to hand out to archers. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the communications. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. Tonight, we have one speaker who will be recognized and allotted 3 minutes to speak. A 30-second warning signal or sign will be displayed when your time is nearly expired, and a timer will signal the end of your allotted time. Speakers should refrain from using this time to criticize or complain about any individual using personally identifiable information. Speakers are expected to be respectful. Please be aware that the school board is interested in hearing comments from the public and will listen carefully, but we will not respond or debate in this setting. Comments made by others may be ruled out of order. Now, if our public speaker could please join us and state their name for the record. So seeing none, then we don't have public comments this evening.
We do.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
I didn't know it would be that fast. Sorry. Let's get my binder out.
If you could state your name for the record, please. And
My name is Jeannie Castle. I'm the head coach for gymnastics.
Okay, and your time starts now, Jeannie.
Thank you so much for hearing us tonight. I'm asking the school board to reconsider moving the gymnastics program out of Hastings. First, student safety should be a priority. If athletes are required to travel to Farmington for a school-sponsored activity, who is liable for a student if a student is injured in a car accident? Keeping the program in Hastings is not an option. Transportation should be provided just as it is for other activities such as alpine ski. Alpine ski is provided a bus 3 days a week to Welch. To be fair and inclusive, this should also be the same for gymnastics without question. Students should not be expected to find their own transportation to a required school activity. Second, moving the program creates additional costs for both families and district. Families will spend more on gas and may need to leave work early to get their students there on time. At the same time, the district would spend approximately $10,000 to rent a facility outside of Hastings. Not to mention, we are being asked to reduce our workout schedule from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, which will have a direct impact on the team. Those funds could instead be invested back into Hastings Middle School or high school programs if we were to stay in a district facility. Moving the program outside the district could reduce participation and potentially encourage some families to look elsewhere for opportunities and possibly enroll in a different school district. And I don't think anyone wants to see that happen. The board has stated that moving the program would only be a temporary solution for 1 year while future plans are developed. If that is the case, why not allow the program to remain at Hastings Middle School or Hastings High School? I'm asking you please to give us the opportunity to sit down together and collaborate on options that could be utilized within existing opportunities right here for at least 1 more year. I have not been invited to the table to share different ideas that could work for everyone. I have been coaching this team long enough to have watched many superintendents come and go, and the school board members come and go as well. I would not be standing here tonight fighting for our program if I did not believe there were a solution that could be reached to serve our students and staff. Finally, gymnastics provides benefits that extend far beyond competition. Gymnastics develops strength, the value of goals, integrity, respect, discipline, and confidence. These are all skills that benefit students throughout life. I encourage the board to listen to parents, athletes, and coaches before making a final decision, and to keep this growing program that has been a Hastings High School sport for over 50 years. Our gymnastics program has had a direct and positive impact in the Hastings community all the years I've been coaching this team through multiple team bonding activities that we participate in each season, giving back to the community that has always supported us. So I want to thank everyone for your consideration on behalf of our team. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move into our reports and discussions, starting with superintendent report with Dr. Werkamp-Herman.
Thank you. So it's been a successful year. We had 351 graduates cross the stage a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, weather didn't, had us worried enough that we moved inside. However, I thought it was a lovely evening. We had 10 graduates that earned honors distinction, which is 3.867 or higher over their 4 years. 24 graduates with 3.935 or higher, which is our high honors distinction, and we had 20 graduates with highest honors, which is a 4.0 over 4 years. So I just want to congratulate them again and bring that to light. That's a lot of work to do to accomplish that. I felt like we had a really good year. My first year here went very, very fast. I can't even believe it's been a year, actually. It's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed meeting community members, getting to know all of our partners, such as the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary, and working with other donors that support our students and staff every day. It's been an honor to work here with our staff and to get to know our community and be out with everyone. I also want to thank the board for your support. It's been wonderful first year, and I look forward to the next year and the years to come. I know we're just finishing a year, and I'm going to talk about next year, but just so everyone knows, and I'm going to announce this at every single meeting until it happens, we are starting earlier next fall. So our first day will be August 31st, before Labor Day. So please, all 5th and 9th graders come to school on August 31st. I need all grades 6 through 8 and 10 through 12 to come on September 1st. And I need everybody here, grades K through 4, all through grade 12 here September 2nd. So I will announce this. We will be putting this out with every communication. We are starting before Labor Day, and I look forward to seeing everyone's faces here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So now we move into our superintendent end-of-the-year evaluation summary. On June 10th, the school board completed its annual evaluation of Superintendent Werkamp Herman's performance. I am happy to report that board members expressed strong appreciation for her leadership during her first year in the district. Board members highlighted her collaborative approach, accessibility, transparency, and commitment to continuous improvement. Members value her ability to build strong relationships while establishing a solid foundation for long-term success. The board is confident in the direction of the district under her leadership, and that is reflected in her overall score. The full end-of-the-year evaluation summary is available in board book for anybody who wanted to take a look at it. Any questions, any comments? Then we will move right in. Oh, go ahead.
I just want to compliment you again. What a great first year, and I don't know how you I've seen you everywhere, and I don't know how you spread yourself out. I think you've cloned yourself, but we appreciate what you've done, and you are really working hard, and you are moving us forward. Thank you.
I have a comment too. For anybody who wasn't at the work session to hear Christine present her goals for this next year, it was extremely impressive. And the organization, the intentionality, and the efforts and the work that she's putting into not only goals, but also relationships within the district is phenomenal. I wish I could have just posted that everywhere because it's just beautiful. So thank you so much for the intentionality. You're exactly what this district has needed.
And I will just mention that she is going to recap those goals later on this evening. Oh, awesome. Yep. So you guys will all get to hear them. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then we're going to move along to invite our Director of Teaching and Learning, Andrew Hodges, and our Literacy and Curriculum Lead, Andy Larson, up to provide us the spring FastBridge presentation.
Thank you, Vice Chair Dressley, Directors of the Board, and Superintendent Werkamp Herman. I'm Andrew Hodges, Director of Teaching and Learning.
I'm Andy Larson, Literacy and Curriculum Lead.
We appreciate getting a chance to talk to you about our spring FastBridge update. As you know, FastBridge is our main assessment we utilize for literacy and math, primarily in grades K-8, although we did a pilot in 9th grade this year as well. And it tests some pretty broad measures of reading skills and math skills to tell us if students are on level, and it also helps dig into what supports they might need if they're not as well. We've got some different color coding in here, but really in this, it's a reminder that what high risk is, so you're below the 15th percentile benchmark, some risk between 15th and 39th. Low risk is going to be, it's a little different for a couple different tests. So I'm not going to say all those, but low risk is basically you're on track of where you should be. And then exceeds is students who are pretty far ahead of what that grade level expectation is. We'll start with literacy. We presented this table earlier this year. You also should have a link which has 50 more slides worth of data as well. So the board or the public could take a look at those. It breaks it down by building, by grade levels, and things like that. But when we look at it from a broader measure across the district, if you take a look just a few years back and take a look of where we're at now, especially in our younger grades, where we've invested the most time, training, energy, curricular resources thus far, you can see how far we've come in a pretty short amount of time. When you think about it in the educational landscape, sometimes you think, when you look at making some large scale changes, it can take 5 to 6 years really before you start to see an impact. When we looked at literacy, because we trained everybody basically in our elementary, because we overhauled almost everything in our literacy curriculum and intervention materials, you're kind of seeing a little bit faster of an impact here. And the data is really playing out, especially those younger grades. We're seeing this huge impact in kindergarten, first grade, getting those really solid foundation of skills. When they go to second grade and beyond, it's a different test. So it is a different, if you go from first to second grade, it's hard sometimes to compare those assessments because they are assessing slightly different things. Our early reading versus our A reading. What we're seeing as well is throughout the trend over time, now we don't have as much data because we used to take NWEA, not FastBridge, in some of our upper grades, but we're seeing students really getting in that 60% range. We are currently working on our secondary literacy curriculum review, and so we're hoping that paired with some additional intervention materials, we'll continue to see this kind of upward trend across all of our grade levels. Intervention is really where we'd like to see, where we should be getting most of our growth and our achievement changes over the years. As you can see in this table right here, we would like to see more of our data look like that McAuliffe, the MEL, where we're seeing a larger percentage of students with that aggressive growth. If our students are needing an intervention, it means they need to grow at more than a typical growth. The typical growth will keep them behind at the same level they are in relation to the grade level that they're going to be in. So we'd like to see more aggressive. So looking at bringing on functional morphology in third and fourth grade, also with some of our middle school students, and also shifting a bit of our intervention model at our elementaries where we have more teachers providing those interventions. And then also in the secondary, we'll be back to 2 teachers next year. So we're hoping we see more of that grow with that aggressive growth in this, but still some really good growth. Some students in some of these interventions might have seen no growth in prior years, where now they're actually seeing growth, but we would like to see it a little bit higher. Moving on to math, again, kind of our year over year table here. Again, we didn't test those K1 grades a few years back, but you can see math has been kind of a stronger data point for us over time, especially seeing in those early K1 grades a solid foundation up close to that 80% mark. And then all the way through high school, we're still in the 70s over there. 70 in 8th grade, 67 in 9th grade. We are currently in a math curriculum review as well and looking at intervention materials, and we'll also be working with special education on special education materials over this next coming year. So again, a large investment is coming in this area as well. We also have a specific math intervention in 5th and 6th grade. And while we're seeing a lot of our students growing in our intervention, we would like to see more move towards that aggressive growth. So we're getting growth, but we'd like to see more of it move towards the aggressive. Some of our shifts going into next school year, as we're looking at it, is MDE has had an update on their recommendations. And so they no longer recommend FastBridge past 3rd grade as giving like the best, most actionable data, especially for students needing an intervention. So we're going to be looking at, we used CAPTI this year. It was a requirement for a certain part of testing. But next year we're looking at the middle school removing winter FastBridge testing and testing all students with CAPTI to see what kind of actionable data we're getting out of that. And does that have an impact then on that next 6 to 8 week intervention model? And then at the high school, we're going to be discontinuing our FastBridge pilot. Actionable data that we were getting, how much we were able to utilize it in the classroom, it just wasn't getting us exactly what we needed. So we're going to discontinue that pilot and continue using our gated CAPTI screener. So some students that we know might need more touch points, we're going to give the CAPTI assessment, which MDE says is the more reliable assessment for actionable use. To be able to then plan interventions in that way. And I forgot to add a question slide, but any questions? Yes.
I know that there's a different model at different elementary schools in reading, and we really like that McAuliffe growth in interventions. Remind us of the models and talk about where we're going with that next year. I think that's important for the community to hear about. I guess I asked that question with with expectation.
Sure. Thank you, Director Zuzik. I think when we look at our model, McAuliffe and Kennedy this year had a very similar model. So we had 1.5 FTE teaching staff there. And then each of those buildings also had 2 paraprofessional staff that were working with students on literacy skills. And so Pinecrest had 2 full-time reading interventionists there. Next year, we're moving to a model of having 2 at each of our sites, 2.0 FTE at each site, so that we can be more in compliance with this idea of licensed staff being the ones to deliver the highest needs intervention.
Thank you.
Any other, Director Bruns?
Yeah, the data is very promising, but if community members look at the Minnesota report card, there's a discrepancy between achievement and attainment on the MCA versus what we see here. Is how do we not rationalize, but how do we make sense of that difference in the data set for the community?
Yeah, I think especially, so I'll look at reading first. What's being assessed on the MCAs versus what's being assessed on FastBridge aren't exactly the same thing. FastBridge is looking at your reading skills. Do you have the skills you need to be able to read? MCAs are assessing very specific standards. Not all the standards, very specific standards. That doesn't mean one measure is better or worse than the other, but it's telling us different things. So whereas FastBridge might be telling us that our students, a large percentage of them are having the skills they need to read, the MCA data might be telling us a couple things, but it might be telling us where are students not utilizing the tools in the manner it's being asked of them. So if it's saying, read these 2 passages, now answer a question about it, now answer a linked question with the evidence, that's kind of in a vacuum of a way that, like, we don't normally read like that, right? So a normal reading practice is you'd read the passages and maybe annotate them and discuss them. But when you're offered then 4 choices and pick the best possible choice where 2 of them might be very close, it's not like a natural response rate, which is why you see, across the state, no district going above 80% of achievement in these areas. It's just not a natural environment as for testing either, where we're maybe changing the physical environment of the classroom, covering up the walls. That raises stress levels in kids, just like it would adults, right? And it's a very sterile environment when we do that. FastBridge, it's not a sterile testing environment. It's more of a natural environment for students when they're taking that assessment.
Also talk about the ability to, if you see a student that's not really trying on a FastBridge test, what do teachers do?
Yeah, so on FastBridge, if we see a kid not trying or after the assessment, we notice something, we're able to go back in and retest the student, have a conversation with them, see what's going on, get that retest. Because FastBridge is data that we're using that is actionable. We're doing something with that data the next week, the next 2 weeks, over the next period of 6 to 8 weeks. With the MCAs, we can't say a word about it. We can't talk to the students during it. We can't encourage them throughout the assessment. We can't retake it. And so it leads to a lot of differences. Now, I'm not saying that leads to all of the discrepancies, no, but I do think that is partial of them.
I will say also that I think one of the things that we get into with the MCA, like Director Hodges said, was this idea of depth of knowledge and what we are actually asking kids to be able to do and think about, which isn't an assessment of their fluency, their phonics, their comprehension, completely. And so the work that we've done over the last 2 years with our literacy curriculum has really opened up doors to be able to think deeper for our students. And that's one of the things that we believe is going to be a key to being able to increase some of those scores, is to be able to get our students to think deeper and be able to apply their thinking on a much grander scale rather than here's a question, here's an answer.
And just to that is an area then where we need to look at how are we assessing students formatively in the classroom as well as summatively on unit assessments to see, are we asking them questions in a manner that they can expect to see on an MCA exam, because we want to make sure we're setting students up for success and not putting them in a testing environment that might already be stressful and then making it more stressful when they're seeing question sets that don't mimic what they've seen in the classroom before. I don't think any of us would do well on an assessment like that. And so I think we need to do that work as well, and we will be doing that work as well.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you. And then I invite our Director of Teaching and Learning to stay with us for our 6th grade social studies curriculum proposal. Thank you.
I should read this again, just so this is, I know we talked before, our social studies curriculum over the next year. We're going to be seeing this coming about kind of at a different clip than what you might see when we propose something like an elementary language arts or math curriculum set, because each grade level in social studies really is its own, silo's not a great word, but its own little piece, content. Yeah, it's all very different. And so 6th grade social studies is what I'm presenting on tonight. Real quick, so I'm working with Northern Lights that I'll talk about to get board members access to the curriculum. I went in and tested actually on Director Zuzik's earlier today, and it was not working. It was working, but it wasn't, something was missing, I noticed. And so I reached out to them today to see if they could look into the accounts and make sure that it's not, because it should be really simple, and it was making me go through a couple hoops, so we don't want that. So I will be sending out an email with the login information once they get back to me. So our curriculum be considered, it's actually our current curriculum. Northern Lights, and it's developed by the Minnesota Historical Society with teachers, with historians, and they're moving from the 2nd to the 3rd edition. And our current contract goes through the 27-28 school year. So we have 2 more years on our current contract with Northern Lights. And what they're doing for districts like ours is if we move to the 3rd, the online comes at no cost. The textbook replacement would come at a reduced cost. So if we were to move forward with this, we would be looking at just the textbook purchase right now for in the classroom. But the online would continue for the next 2 years before we'd have to make any kind of investment in that. And that's usually kind of a higher price point because it's year over year. This curriculum started last year with our 6th grade teachers going through, looking at the standards, what's the depth of knowledge, how does our current curriculum cover all of these, what are the gaps in this, and then started working, they attend trainings with Northern Lights throughout the school year. So kind of they started hearing about the updates that would be coming. Those updates really snowballed into a larger scale move from a 2nd to a 3rd edition that has about 50% updates, meaning could be readings, it could just be changing the unit assessments, it could be looking at the question sets in there. So there's a lot of different updates in there that they made. And, you know, when we looked at the policy on curriculum, this was being looked at in my lens and speaking to the teachers and others about like, this is just a curriculum update. When we look at curriculum updates and policies, those typically aren't board approvals because we're just looking at some units that are being updated and things like that. Once we started to get more information and saw that we're looking at 50% of this curriculum being updated, we felt like it became more appropriate to bring it for consideration as an adoption to the board versus just a director level approval process. This is a curriculum that's used in 90% of 6th grades across the state of Minnesota. In fact, it's the only comprehensive curriculum that covers the 6th grade social studies standards for the state of Minnesota. There is another company that produces like unit sets for this, but it would still be heavily something that teachers would have to continue to do work on, build out the curriculum in full. And so this new curriculum there's a handout attachment that kind of explains the updates to the curriculum, and there's a standards progression chart on there as well that shows when the different standards are hit in the materials today. The feedback from teachers was that both teachers would prefer to move to this 3rd edition. We currently and still would go through Unit 15. I think it goes through 18 units maybe. One of it's a time constraint. in that when you look at the pacing throughout the school year, with our class times and things like that, getting through the 15th is really about where we can get fully covered through. There's also topics in 16, 17, and 18 that kind of overlap with 7th and 8th grade curriculum as well. So it's like if we had to cut something, those are the areas where we most could. And so in talking to Chris and Kyle, that's what they continue to believe as well, to go through Unit 15. And again, that cost would really just would be on the physical materials. So it's we did get in January, we presented this to our curriculum committee. We had parents there, and they said they didn't have a lot of input in terms of like what the content was and things like that. More just so like it covers the curriculum, the teachers like it. It's something I think we should continue with it. Was most of the feedback that we received. Our recommendation is that we adopt the updated 3rd edition of Northern Lights. And then the next steps would be providing the next, I think it's month, to take a look at the curriculum once I get you the online access. Any questions you might have, things like that we would go through. And then I believe we have it on a July vote. So questions?
When you commented on textbook purchasing, is it a classroom set? I know that there's roughly 30 kids in a class, but maybe we have 40 so that they can bring them home if they need to, or check one out, or is it every kid gets a book?
So because they have an online textbook for every student, we'd be looking at classroom text, plus having copies for special education teachers and EL teachers.
Great.
So it'd be we're looking at between 80 and 90. I usually lean on like the 90 number because then we have extras in case they get lost or damaged as well.
Thank you.
And we haven't reviewed it yet, but is there anything that when in choosing this, you didn't like about it, or if there's anything that you kind of raised flags for you?
Nothing raised flags in units 1 through 15, and that's really where I spent my time, to be honest, because that's where we're going to be able to go through. So nothing really raised flags. One thing that I think is important, I was a social studies teacher, and a lot of what we learn about in social studies, whether it's Minnesota or world studies, we're really looking at like there's an amount of facts out there, right? Like what is the price of oil, right? But then like there's a lot of opinions that go into history. So why did the price of oil change, right? And you're going to get a myriad of opinions in there. And so anytime we're looking at a curriculum, we want to see like, are we getting a myriad of opinions inside of what we're teaching of the like facts that happen throughout history? Because that's really an important thing. History is a mix of sociology, of history, of all of these different pieces. And so it's important to have all of those aspects. So nothing through that lens raised a red flag for me. But I'll continue as you're looking over it the next month to continue looking over it myself as well.
I remember in one of our previous meetings, you were going through all of the true like critical skill that you wanted to cultivate in the students. Can you, one, reiterate that, the critical thinking and whatnot, and then two, just comment on whether this curriculum reiterates that as well?
So what we really want students to be able to do in all classes, but in social studies classes, we want them to be able to think and apply the skills of how do I analyze history? How do I analyze events that occurred? How do I take in opinions that occurred throughout history and then formulate arguments from that? Formulate my own opinion from that. And so we really want students to do that. This curriculum definitely asks students to do that. A lot of open-ended, a lot of critical thinking. If you go to Chris Gardell or Kyle Kreiser's classroom, you'll see kids deeply thinking in there. It's, when I was in Chris's classroom earlier this school year, it was, some of it's his teaching style, but it was a very, very engaging study that students were going through. And he really brought it to life, like, no, you have to answer these questions. Like, you don't just look, you can't just look it up in the book that's just telling you things. You got to really formulate your own. So it gets to that, but it also gets to that because of the teaching style of our teachers who make sure that happens.
So I did have a question about if we've looked at other curriculum, but it sounds like you guys did because you determined that teachers would have to fill in the blanks for what was missing from the other curriculums, correct? Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much for presenting tonight.
Thank you.
And now we have our Director of Facilities and Safeties. I don't see him though. Oh, yeah, there we go. Okay. Our Director of Facilities and Safety, Scott Stockdale, to give us our radon test report.
Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Werekamp Herman. I'm Scott Stockdale, Director of Facilities and Safety, and here to present our radon testing results. Not required to do radon testing, but if we do radon testing, the results need to be reported to the school board, and so that's what I'm here to do. The report in the board book was prepared by IEA, our contracted health and safety partner. 3 buildings were tested this school year: Kennedy, Pinecrest, and Tilden. The elevated areas were at Kennedy Elementary, the kitchen office, the stage, and then at Pinecrest, the gym office and the cot room. And then thirdly, at the Kennedy Curriculum Center, the classroom was testing a little bit high. So they do 2 rounds of testing. First, if they're high, then they do a second round of testing. And so those all tested it below the action level, except for the Curriculum Center, which the action level is 4 picocuries per liter, if that means anything to anyone. And so the Curriculum Center tested just a little bit above that at 6.2 picocuries per liter. And so after that second round of testing, then we're looking at what we can do to mitigate that just with HVAC in that space. That's kind of the first go-to that we try. And so we're going to adjust the flow of that if we can. It's a little bit different system because it's kind of more of a residential housing thing at the Curriculum Center and not as adjustable as our normal systems in our buildings. And so we're going to go through and try and adjust that. If that is unsuccessful, then we'll have to put in either a mitigation system or some kind of exhaust fan to make sure we're getting down to that appropriate action level. So retesting will occur again in the fall after November 1st, as recommended by MDH.
Any questions? Well, thank you for the report.
Yep, you're welcome.
And now we have our Director of Finance and Operations, Jen Subert, giving us our operating referendum board renewal presentation.
Thank you, directors of the board and Superintendent Werekamp Herman. I am here tonight to provide a presentation that will summarize the information that has been provided over the past several months and provide an opportunity for some additional discussion and any questions. So the details of the expiring referendum are, it is the one that was approved by voters in November of 2017. It provides us approximately $4.2 million annually. The last year of revenue will be fiscal year 27-28. In the amount per adjusted pupil unit is $773 plus the inflationary factor. And then there is a board renewal window that started on July 1st of 2025 and goes through June 15th of 2027. And this is provided through Minnesota law. It's a window during which the board may renew the referendum under the same conditions as originally approved by the voters. So the significance of this referendum to the district is huge, as it provides a meaningful portion of our operating budget and supports the day-to-day operations as well as the educational services that our students receive. So why renew the referendum? Again, it would preserve the $4.2 million in annual operating revenue. It maintains funding that has already been approved by Hastings voters in 2017. So again, it doesn't increase it, but it does continue what was previously approved by voters. And then it provides stability for long-range planning. Unfortunately, school referendums are necessary because the state funding increases have not consistently kept pace with inflation and the rising costs of operating schools. In addition, districts are frequently required to implement new state and federal mandates without receiving sufficient funding to cover the associated costs. So referendums help bridge the funding gap. It would also avoid the cost and the uncertainty of an election, and then it allows the district to focus resources on students and programs versus contingency plans for potential loss of revenue. The statutory authority, so Minnesota Statute 126C.17, subdivision 9B, permits locally elected school boards to renew existing operating levies one time under the same conditions originally approved by the voters. So again, it's not an increase, it's under the same conditions. And then the legislature created this option in 2023 because operating referendum renewals were routinely approved by voters, and the renewal by board resolution reduces the election costs while maintaining local control. We have been working with Ellers, who is our financial advisor, and they had provided us this summary at a previous presentation. But since the Minnesota statute went into effect, you can see the board renewal versus the authority. So in 2023-24, the expiring year, 13 out of 13 districts used the renewal option. And then 2025, 15 out of 16, 25, 26, 48 out of 51. And then 26, 27, that window is still open through the end of, or through June 15th. I guess we're past that, so that, sorry, has already closed. And this slide was from a few weeks ago, so it may have some updated information. And then 27, 28 is the window that we're in. And there's currently 5 that have already reported that they've renewed, but that window again goes through June 15th of 2027. And then the referendum revenue supports our day-to-day operations and our general fund costs of the school district. So it's the overall educational experience and the operational needs of the district. And you can kind of see some of those examples. So then based on the financial significance of the revenue, we are recommending that the board use the authority provided by Minnesota statute to secure the long-term funding. And then this will preserve approximately $4.2 million again in that operating revenue. And then we did include just a quick summary of our process to date. So there have been multiple work sessions, board meetings, finance committee meetings, kind of going back to March, where we've been working through the details of this. So tonight we're on the June 17th, just a presentation tonight, and then we'll open it up for discussion. But then July 15th, we would allow for public testimony, and then there would be a vote on renewing the operating referendum under the same conditions originally approved by voters by resolution as permitted by Minnesota state statute. So I can open it up to the board if you have any questions or discussion.
I have a question. So this, if we're to renew, which it looks like a lot of boards have done already, this will not increase taxes.
It would not increase taxes. It would renew it at the current level that it already is.
That's been for 10 years.
10 years.
Okay.
And just for clarity, this was already approved obviously by our community when they voted in 2017.
Correct.
Thank you.
And just thinking about some of the impacts at the state level to our finances and where that money ends up coming from anyway. There was the Blue Ribbon Council on Special Education looking to cut $250 million in special education payments, even reducing the reimbursement for special education transportation to about 90%, I think is the most recent number. Those costs come no matter what. We serve students because we give them what they need, especially when they're receiving special education services. Without that funding from the state, where does that money come from? If you can speak to that, I think it's helpful for folks.
Yeah, it has to come from somewhere, so that's why we go out for these referendums and then the opportunity to renew them. So this will support those services that we're required to offer to students.
Any other questions or comments?
I have a comment just after the work session last week. I just wanted to say thank you so much for really drilling down into this and helping us understand. You've been so pivotal in understanding budget. And the one thing that just became really clear to add on to Matt's comment is, and something that was brought up last year, is how vital it is that we secure funding from our local community, because the legislator has determined that that's where schools are going to be funded from now on out. So just thank you for making that so clear to us. I always find your discussions just so helpful. So thank you.
Yeah, and just to echo that point, we had 3 legislators here last week at our work session, and I asked the question about, it is clear that the state of Minnesota's legislature over the last, and I can only quantify 4 decades because that's how long I've been in education, has included public funding at a local level via property tax as part of the funding formula for public schools. And so we had 3 out of 3 legislators agree that, yes, this is how Minnesota funds schools. This is part of the mix. This is, I know that it's the only part that we have to go to, in some circumstances go to the voter to ask for, but this is not unique to Hastings, and it's not unique to this time frame either. But the renewal is something that started 3 years ago. The capacity to renew without going back to voters on the same terms of the original levy. So.
You touched on just the number of mandates that have come through, and there hasn't been an appropriate amount of state level funding to keep those programs moving into perpetuity. And then just in school finance, the number of restricted accounts where that money is dedicated for this specific function. Can you talk about the interplay of that and how that impacts our budget as well when we think about these $4.2 million in our general fund?
So I'll be doing the budget later tonight, and we'll kind of talk about it there too, but you'll be able to see at that point the number of restricted funding sources that the district has is much greater than the unrestricted. So there's many times that they'll, through either the state or the federal government, they'll implement mandates that they'll fund for a year or initially, but then after that it becomes the district's responsibility to fund it through our regular operating budget. So again, that's where this referendum dollars really helps kind of bridge the gap between that.
No, seeing no other questions, then I will ask you to stay with us and give us an update on the Building Construction Fund project.
All right, so this one's much quicker. So the Building Construction Fund accounts for the money the district received from the voter-approved bonds for school renovations and improvements. We are continuing to work down on these last projects. So I know this on the screen is small, but it is available in board book. Right now, we currently have about $204,000 available that hasn't been assigned to a project. However, we know that we have an arbitrage payment that we will need to make here once the projects are completed. So we've been purposely saving some of that money to make that arbitrage payment. And then as far as projects in process, we have the first 2, or I guess just really the first one on there, we're kind of wrapping up. That's the high school deferred maintenance. And then the other 4 are relatively new. So those are projects that we've added recently and are working to complete this summer. So that totals about $235,000. And then we have about $9,000 left in the flexible furniture that is already in the works. So that will be spent here soon. So overall, there's a balance of about $449,000 in this account.
Any questions? Okay. Well, thank you for that update. And now we go to our Director of Human Resources, Kathy Moen, for a legal data request update.
Good evening. We have had 4 new data requests since the last board meeting when I made a report. We did not have any legal bills this month that were related to data requests. We do currently have 17 open data requests that we have in process. And I thought maybe tonight I'd just give you a little more detail about what's pending. Of those 17 data requests, 12 of them are coming from 3 companies, 8 of them from 1 of the 3 companies. And all 3 of those companies are really collecting data about employee information, financial transactions, or contracts and things that we have purchased services for. So it's not like our local community, it's companies from out of state that are requesting data from our district. So just thought it might be helpful to kind of get some context around those.
You don't have to answer this right now, but what's the purpose or what's like the value of the companies requesting this data?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm guessing it's about a sales because they're looking at what we purchased or how much we paid or what we're using and using that for, as far as I know, benefit to their business.
Any other questions?
I just have to make a comment. Thank you for sharing that information. There is a great deal amount of time that our staff put into collecting that information to send to companies outside of our state. So I just want to say that that is very frustrating when we're limited in our resources. You just heard about how it is with our school funding, and then we're having our staff time be given to this type of a data request. It's not our local taxpayer, it's outside. So I just raised that. That is something we should really go down to our legislature and talk about what's permissive and what isn't.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for the update, Director Moen. Now we move into our reports and discussions, and we start with our ISD 917 liaison update with Director Zuzik.
Yes, there's 2 quick things for the board, really. I don't know how many citizens are going to be interested in these, but they are available on Board Book. The first one is the strategic plan. It goes out 4 years for 917, and I think that they did a tremendous job. 917 did a tremendous job. They used internal resources to project forward and to touch base with all groups of stakeholders. I'm really proud of this strategic plan, and I think it sets us up well for the next 4 years. The next one is a slideshow that talks about an internship program that Frank Herman, who is the secondary principal at 917, is unveiling. And he's looking for some school districts to be pilot programs, and I'm hoping that Hastings will be one. I think it meshes incredibly well with our Pathways program, and this is a way for us to learn a lot when a lot of resources are on the table. For us to do all of the legwork that he's already done and his colleague, Nicole, have already done, it would be hard for us to replicate that work. And we don't have an internship program yet at Hastings High School, but it certainly will, I think it will very likely be a part of our Pathways program. So I'm way fired up about this. And I mean, the slideshow shows a lot of, the thing that I liked the best about it is it starts by saying, okay, this is where we're going to eventually get to, and then here's the steps we're going to take to get there. And it just looks pretty darn foolproof. So a couple of great things from 917. Yeah.
Any questions? All right, well, thank you, Director Zuzik, and I ask you to now give us the AMSD update, please.
The Association of Metropolitan School Districts is only one of very many organizations throughout the state that is working on communicating a proposed amendment to the state's constitution. And these are tricky because they've been around for a long time. And why in the heck would we mess with the state constitution? And the reason is that when the state was originally founded, one of the things that happened really early on, in fact, it was 1858, when sections of each township were set aside for investment funds. And some of those were sold off a number of years ago, and now they're, part of, for instance, where the city of Hastings is, or the city of Forest Lake. And some of them are still earning funding because of other investments that were made in mining and in forestry and in natural resources. And so these monies have accrued over time. And recently, in the last 10 years, the fund has doubled. And in the last 15 years, the fund has tripled. So the gains have been really significant. But the original legislative language says that the money that can go to a perpetual account for all schools throughout the state, all students throughout the state, the money can only come from the interest or dividends on the accounts. And so when land is sold, the sale of that property, those dollars can't come back to school districts, for instance. The intent at the origin of the account was to ensure continued stability of funding in perpetuity for students and for school districts throughout the state. But the model is old, and the model, I've seen enough evidence that the model is insufficient. And so what groups like the Association of Metropolitan School Districts and SEEK and the Minnesota Rural Education Association, MREA, and MSBA and MASSA, the Minnesota Association of School Administrators, are all supportive of making it clear that there's a different way and a better way to distribute those funds that will continue to avail opportunities in perpetuity. And the evidence is very clear, and looked at a lot of different funds throughout the nation that are similar to this and use a different funding model. What will happen is the dollar amount that we presently get, or the last year got, was $76 per pupil unit for a total of $295,000, $656. $298,656 for the district at that $76 per pupil. And the auditors are saying that this new way of distributing the funds would net us nearly twice that much per year. So consider getting close to, over $500,000 a year for the district instead of that $298,000 per year. And it still guarantees the perpetuity and the growth of the fund over time. We need to be careful, to be thorough in our analysis of it. But from my perspective, not just as the board treasurer, but watching a lot of podcasts or web presentations on this issue, I don't see a downside to it. And the hard part is this: in order to get this funding, the state's constitution has to be amended, which means in the fall of 2026, right in November, when we go out and there's a gubernatorial election at that same time. But when we go out for funding, when we go out for that election, we have to, hopefully, if it passes, it will pass only if enough people say, yes, this is a good idea and I agree with it. And sadly, this is probably going to be on the long list of whom you vote for and what you vote for on your ballot. This probably is going to come after judges. I mean, this is going to be at the end of the road. And the problem is, if people don't have an affirmative vote, yes, I want to amend the Constitution to distribute the funds differently, then it's a no. So if they leave it blank, it's a no. So there's a real big need for us to educate the voters so that they understand fully the relative pros and cons of this. I know that you've all read many of the same things I've read, and you're aware of it, but I would open it up for any questions or comments, if I may, Board Chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Some of the organizations that are sponsoring this are not always on the same page and are often at odds. And when we had legislators in front of us, it didn't matter what party they were from, they supported this amendment change. So I think that thrust of support coming from people who normally can't eat dinner at the same table is enough of a signal on top of the research that's been brought forward.
To your point, Director Bruns, it was a unanimous vote at the legislature to bring this to the voters, and it didn't have to get approved by the governor. The way that the amendments to the Constitution work is if the House and the Senate both vote for it, then it goes through. So you're right. I mean, everybody that's looked at this is saying, heck yeah, it's time that we made that change.
Any other questions or comments? Well, I thank you for that deep explanation of this constitutional amendment.
There you go.
And next up, we have our Community Collaboration Committee update with Director Michael Mulder.
Thank you so much. So the Community Collaboration Committee has been pretty busy. We had our staff gathering, we had a community gathering, and then we also had a private committee meeting. Our next, I outlined kind of like the general findings that we've found from the community within the committee report, and I'll leave it to you to review that. But there were three things that really were highlighted to me over the conversations with the staff, the community, and then internally. It's one, the staff want to see us more. So we talked about implementing a school visit coordination whatever calendar amongst us. We'll bring that we'll bring more detail to the board in our next work session. Second proposal was that the staff want more input on policy. So we discussed involving the principals more and looking into board book to see what other kind of notifications we can pump out regarding the specific policies that we're going to be talking about, reiterating that staff have say, and the principals are potentially working the principals to kind of collect that information. And then three, people just want to know more about what we're doing as a district, but as a board. So we discussed working with Carrie Gore, who does such an amazing job already on our community Facebook post, to do some micro blurbs from the board specifically, and they'll be a little bit different than the community blurbs, but or from the district blurbs, but it's more or less to communicate and follow up with, the decisions that we're making, what are we doing, kind of what's been on our plate. Because one thing that became really obvious is, we have so much discussion during our work session, and there's so much of an undercurrent in our decision making at this table that it's really hard to communicate to the community. So we talked about how to get these micro blurbs out to just get people, a small bit to bite on about what we have going on and the decisions that we're making, and then reiterating at on every single Facebook blurb. Our emails and our phone numbers are on this district website. We are ready to talk to you. We want to dialogue with you. We're not afraid to dialogue with you. It's just doing it all at a school board meeting is too much. We're still discussing kind of the nitty gritties of this. One thing that we did rule out was having an anonymous email. We talked about that at one of our staff meetings, and I'll reiterate to the staff in our next meeting as to why we decided that actually can't be done in our system. But we are continuously looking for new ways to get input from the community and to follow up with the community about what we hear from the community. Part of the Facebook blurb tube is one thing that was reiterated multiple times was, our voices there's many voices that have been spoken through the perspectives or the surveys at the committee meetings or at the staff or at the gatherings that we've been having, what have you. Staff and the community want to know what we're doing with that meat. So we discussed the blurbs as being kind of that bridge to say, like, we really are taking what you're saying. We're talking about it a lot. We're thinking about it a lot. And we are putting micro action steps in that might not be immediately obvious, but they're there. And we want you to know that we've heard you and we're actually committing to doing something about what you've said. So we're going to meet again as a committee probably next month, and then I'll bring more specific kind of action steps to the board for the next work session to propose.
Thank you. Any questions? And I just do have one comment. Every policy summary, every single month that's available in Board Book does have our 3-year policy review spreadsheet. So you can see exactly what we're going to be looking at as far as policies are concerned for the next 3 years out. And reach out if you have questions. Thank you for the update. And next up is our Facilities Committee, which they have not met since the last update, so we don't have a Facilities Committee update tonight. And we'll move on to Finance Committee update with Director Zuzek.
I'll be really quick. Frankly, the first issue is just to look at the 2026-27 budget, which Director Subert just did. The renewal. We've looked at that, and I think we're going to be looking at the budget in just a moment. So I'm not going to spend time doing it. I was foreshadowing. I apologize. And then we also looked at the conversation about renewal of a levy with board authority, as was discussed earlier. And then we are looking at the additional long-term considerations. And our next meetings are not scheduled yet, but they're likely going to be, they may occur even in summer months in July or August. And we're probably going to be working with vendors to look at what is the community tolerance and what is the perspective, what is the prospective of us looking at the funding that we have coming in, and is there a different way that we should be doing this with our community? So that's what's going on with finance.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll see no questions. We will move along to the Joint Powers Committee update with Director Milner.
All right, so we met on June 11th, and we've got some fun and exciting stuff going on. We're going to try and meet with the local townships to try and just build better relationships and have better communication with them. And so the ones that have reached back to us so far is Douglas, Nininger, Ravenna, and Vermilion, and we're still communicating with some others, but our intent is to actually start some consistent meetings with them so that we just have really good communication about things that both of us need to know. So it might be, are they having a really big road construction project that might affect our busing in the fall? We should know about that. And it might be something like, what are you doing to draw new families into your community? We really need new families and development and businesses in our communities. So I'll let you read what our other proposed discussion topics are, but we're looking to do our first meeting the first couple weeks in August. And yeah, we're just hoping for some really good collaboration and getting some good communication between all of the communities we serve. And then our next committee meeting will be August 26th from 5 to 6 in Conference Room A.
So one quick question that I have is, have you guys determined the 3 board members, or are you guys going to like have people signed up or reached out for wanting to do that?
I think,
What is the-
I think we plan on sticking with the same committee members, so then
Awesome.
it would be, yeah,
Perfect.
okay, the
Yep,
ones
good
listed
deal.
at the top here. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We reach out to the Prairie Island Indian community.
Not.
So Dr. John Johnson would welcome that invitation.
That's perfect.
Well, thank you for the update. And now we move into our NAPAC liaison update with Director Bruns.
Yeah, this meeting was held the Thursday before graduation. The 2 big things from the committee side, we're looking at spending down the funds designated to that group. So that way it falls in line with the way that budget reports and the funds that do and don't carry over. So they're looking at further flag installations. If you're familiar with Hastings High School Commons, you'll see the tribal nations flags that are hung in that area, but adding those to buildings around, and they've toured the elementary sites and other buildings to look at locations where those would go. So that is something that really has legs to move forward. Exciting news for us is that the positions have been posted for Dakota language and Dakota culture here at Hastings Public Schools. Those postings have been shared within Prairie Island community, and there is an instructor of like high pedigree that is currently out on a leave and very interested in that. So hoping to see that come in and maybe legs on a second as well. Some events that we're considering for the future, like a back to school feast around Raiders Set Go and having that aligned, and then having our Native American education liaison, Cyan Peacock Hale, presenting on those flag installations and what it means. So kind of tying in that cultural piece at a moment when families are already coming together. Events for next year, moccasin making in the fall. Other things will be added, but also as a note, just that first Tuesday in May will be the graduation ceremony. And July, we are taking off and we'll be back together in August, on August 6th in the Curriculum Center.
Well, thank you for that update. And any questions? Okay. Our student school board committee has not met since our last update, so there's no update from them. And we will move into our policy committee update, and Director Zuzek will be giving that update and also our first readings.
I apologize. I'm a second stringer at this, so bear with me. But I think it's important for the citizens to know that as we go through our policies, we do it by category, and the category that we're working on right now is board policy. It's our second time going through this in the last 3 years. So a lot of it is review, and with policy 200, there's really nothing substantive with that one. You'll see that is a first reading. And then the next one's interesting because the committee did a lot of work on this, and kudos to Vice Chair Dressley for her good work on it. But the procedures under 203 are all related to how the board operates before, during, and after board meetings, and in work sessions and in committees. And so there's just a ton of work that went into this. Remember that nomenclature, 203.1 PR means that it's a procedural piece. And so these are all procedures that you're going to see, and it's the first reading. It's first and final. First and final because they're procedures, so we don't have a second reading on those. So tonight you'll have your first and final reading, and then 204 is the school board minutes and how that goes out. Nothing substantial, nothing substantive there, and then 205 is the open meeting, closed meetings, and that I think we had some information that was new this year, and that's why those changes occurred.
Right.
So that again, there's nothing that's too big of a deal. That's a first reading, so you'll see that at 2 additional meetings, because our typical procedure for policies is that they're read for 3 meetings in a row. 206 is public participation in school board meetings, and we intend to maintain the same process that we've had for the last couple of years. 206 FRM is a form, and the change is very minor in regard to that. And 206 PR is the public comment procedure. And again, that's just a simple word that was added, nothing substantial. Public hearings are different. Public hearings happen, for instance, for our levy tax authority and also in consideration of a bond or referendum. And that's why at next month's board meeting, there is a public hearing scheduled, and that's operated differently, but that is talked about in Policy 207. The Code of Ethics is new, and we've just adopted the MSBA. Go ahead.
So we currently do have a policy 209. The recommendation is to replace it with the new policy 209. It's just more aligned with the way we operate as a board, and it kind of reflects that. So it's first reading. It'll go through multiple readings for you guys to have an opportunity to give feedback or suggestions if you should want to.
Thank you. 213 school board committees, 213 PR. Again, that's a procedure. And 220 student board representation. The lesson there is that now that we've been operating with school board, our students on the school board for a couple of years, we've learned some lessons, and there's some clarifications in that, and also in the next one, which is student school board committee operations. There's really clarifications for the students that work with us. And then the second and third readings, we had no public feedback on those, but they are listed below. Our next meeting is August 6th. Okay. Looking forward to that. Any questions or comments about board? Policy. Just glad to be done.
Thinking about Policy 220 and the procedures that come out of that, just so people know, it's not happening to the Student School Board Committee, it's happening alongside. We looked at that language in the Student School Board Committee meeting, and then we wanted that to go to policy to be updated. So I just wanted people to know, like, one committee isn't telling the other what to do.
Oh.
So the school board wanted to say, like, let's stare at this. Like, what do we really want to get out of this and enhance the experience? And then we were like, well, these are policy and procedure changes, and we ushered them back over. So I appreciate that.
Based on lessons learned, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation too, because when you're living it every day, you don't really think about that whole aspect of it. So I appreciate you explaining that a little bit better. Any questions or comments on policy? Seeing none. Yeah, you did a great job, Mark. Thank you. Then we will be moving into our action items and beginning with the consent agenda. I'm looking for a motion on this item.
Michael Mulder moves to approve the consent agenda.
Beermeyer, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And now we're going to go ahead and move into our items for individual action. And we will start with a presentation from, apologize, I'm scroll down. Our Director of, sorry, Grounds and Safety, Scott Stocksdale. And he will give us our 10-year LTFM plan.
Hello again. Thank you for the opportunity to present the long-term facility maintenance 10-year plan. Lindy's going to bring up a few documents for us. If you can bring that revenue projection one up first. So this is kind of our MDE document that we use every year. And so really the main thing to know about this is the long-term facility maintenance funding is allocated by our student enrollment. And as the number of our students decline, also so does our revenue. But the bottom line for fiscal year 27 is, it's on, if you can see it at all, it's line 112, but it's $1,318,778. And then our next document is the expenditures projection. And you can kind of see that first bank at the top is our health and safety projects going across for 10 years. And these are all in your board book documents. But And then scrolling down from there, that next big bank is all of our building projects that would go through there in their respective areas, like building envelope, plumbing, electrical. And then you can see below that, we're spending down our fund balance as we go across through the 10 years. And these are the two main forms that get submitted to MDE for our long-term facility maintenance planning. Also, along with those, just a couple of notable projects for 2027 here. And there they are for you. Kind of some high school carpet replacement. The specific details on that are starting at door 1 at the high school, kind of on that upper entry level by our athletics, going all the way across the bridge and down every stairwell is what we've been able to cover this year. So that'll be kind of a good chunk of carpet replaced in that building. It's due, and so that'll, I think, sharpen up that area quite a bit. Kennedy door hardware, we're going to do new handles, including, I'm excited about this piece because we're including locked, unlocked identifiers on the inside of those handles. So when you pull the door closed for safety, you can tell visually whether that door is locked or unlocked. So we're pretty excited about adding that into that, and starting with all of our buildings, but starting at Kennedy. Replacing the middle school PA system, which has been in disrepair for quite some time, and needing really to be just taken care of and replaced. So we're getting that done, and that'll be a safer element there. And then middle school and Pinecrest parking lots. And that's going to be crack and pothole repair and then seal coat on those. So that's what I have for you. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you for the update. And now I am looking for a motion on the 2028 LTFM 10-year plan.
Michael Mulder moves to approve the fiscal year 28 long-term facilities maintenance 10-year plan. And do I have to waive the reading?
Suzik seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you for your report. And now we have our Director of Finance and Operations, Jen Suber, will present the 2026-2027 adopted budget.
Okay, thank you. So tonight I'll be providing an overview of the proposed 26-27 budget, and I'm going to be highlighting the major assumptions and the fund balances as we go. Tonight's just a summary, but I did review this already in much greater detail with the Finance Committee on May 28th, and then also at a work session on June 10th. And the full packet is available in Board Book. Okay, so as a reminder, the adopted budget is our best estimate of revenues and expenditures for the upcoming fiscal year based on the information that we have available. It reflects our current enrollment projections, our known staffing commitments, negotiated settlements, and the most recent information regarding state and federal funding. So we will start with pupil units. For 26-27, we're projecting that we'll have 4,218 adjusted pupil units, which is 100 less than 25-26. Our incoming classes continue to be smaller than our graduating classes. And then this number is based on our prior year October 1 MARS data and projected forward. On October 1st, 2026, when we have students here, we'll do new projections, and then that will be reflected in the revised budget. So as we look at our revenues for the general fund unassigned, so we're going to focus on the unassigned accounts. The changes from the prior budget, so there's the state special ed aid, we're increasing by $300,000. There were a couple changes to the formula, and Director Bruns kind of mentioned it already, but there was an increase in the cross subsidy, but then a decrease in the transportation. So the net is that $300,000. The district did receive a native language revitalization grant. Again, that was kind of touched on in that NAPAC update. sorry. So that's an increase of revenues of about $249,000. But then you'll see that on the expenditure side, we also have an increase in expenditures to account for those teaching positions. The Gen Ed formula had an increase of 2.69%. So overall, that's an increase for our district of about $156,000. Our special ed federal dollars increase of $104,000. So then you'll see that we have a equal increase on the expenditure side for that. The English language cross subsidy, this is something new, but it is based on our 24-25 expenditures. So that's an increase of $102,000, interest $100,000. We have a new pay-per-view and sponsorship revenue funding stream, projecting $13,750 on that. And then all other is about $1,500. And then as we look at some of the decreases, the local collaborative time study, we were awarded some one-time dollars last year that are not available for this upcoming year. So that's a decrease of about $52,000. The unemployment between terms, a decrease of $125,000. So that's one of those mandates that, like districts are required to pay. There was funding available for it. The funding is starting to run out. So we're anticipating that for 26-27, we would only receive half of our expenditures. And then we had an expiring MTSS grant. So there's a decrease there in the revenues, but there's also a corresponding decrease in expenditures. And then our title programs, a decrease of about $184,000. And the poverty rate for Hastings fell below the 5%, which then changes the formula upon which we earn that revenue. So that's why we're seeing a decrease in that. And then our levy and taxes, we had an overall decrease in our levy and taxes of about $276,000 for the unassigned general fund. So the total changes to the revenue is an increase of $232,000. As we look at the expenditures, the first increase is for salary and benefit increases. So all groups are estimates with the exception of teachers and paras are settled, but that is a $1,578,000 increase right there. And then our other expenditures, so there's an audit entry that we're required to do if the board is approving a budget that is overspending, and that always comes at the time of the revised budget. So right now you're seeing that reflected here, but we will have another entry coming through at the time of revised. And then some of these I've already touched on, the native language revitalization, the special ed federal. The next one is the alternative learning program. The board had approved an increase in FTE in that program, and we were using some reserved funds that we no longer have available. So that's an increase of about $46,000. Utilities, an increase of about $32,000. That is offset though by some of our solar initiatives. So they are helping keep our utility charges down. There's an early childhood screening chargeback, an increase of about $24,000. So community ed is required to offer early childhood screening. However, there is not sufficient funding to cover the costs. So then the general fund is required to cover that. Our building supply budgets have an overall increase of about $6,000. All other miscellaneous programs, a decrease of about $13,000. Our district-wide budgets, a decrease of about $17,000. So again, we're looking at unassigned, and we're consistently looking at any of our restricted funding sources to see if we can utilize those funds first. So that's how we saw a decrease in the district-wide budgets. A decrease in the election budget of about $19,000 just based on the upcoming election projection. Transportation, a decrease of about $42,000. So there were some updates made to that contract that were a savings for the district, so that's being recognized. Purchase services decreased of about $45,000, and again, that's just looking at multiple years worth of activity and projecting that forward. Our property and liability insurance decrease of about $52,000. So that was on the consent agenda, but we did receive a very favorable renewal on that. And then again, you'll see the offsets for the MTS grant and the title programs. So overall, the change to the expenditure budget is 2.4 million. So the net is an increase of 2,185,000. So like every year, the budget will continue to evolve. We will bring a revised budget to the board in December, and we'll incorporate these bulleted items. So we'll do a new student enrollment projection. Our staffing numbers will be updated based on actual students. The employment contracts will be settled. We do have to complete a new liability study for OPEB, and we will have that at the time of the revised. And then right now we have many open positions that we don't have people hired into, so there's estimates. But with the revised budget, we'll have actual salaries in there. And then if there are any legislative changes to revenue or expenditure calculations, and then any adjustments based on our audit that we'll be completing soon. So this next page is just a summary, kind of looking at beginning fund balances, the projected revenues and expenditures, and ending fund balances. I won't go through and read the numbers, but the non-spendables is a required entry for prepaids. The restricted, so we kind of touched on these earlier, but restricted accounts are defined by statute for a specific purpose, and then any unspent funds are held separate from all of our other balances for future years. The committed is designated for a specific purpose by formal action of the school board, and we have some of those, and we'll look at them more detailed. The assigned is unrestricted funds constrained by the district's intent, so we also have some of those. And then the unassigned is the resources available to meet any current and future year's expenditures. So as we look at the restricted accounts, so again, these are the ones that legislatively, there's restrictions on how we can spend the dollars, and you can see there's quite a few accounts here that we are required to track, but then each one of them has appropriate expenditures that you can use. So we, again, are trying to maximize the use of these on allowable expenditures. You can see that we're overspending by about 600,000, just utilizing fund balance out of these restricted accounts. And then the committed accounts, again, kind of overspending by about 235,000. That's utilizing fund balance. And that is for a recabling project. And there's a portion of it that's not eligible under E-rate. So that's what's coming out of there. The assigned accounts, these are the ones that the district has determined for a specific purpose. So there's funding for the STEM positions at the elementaries, and then we do have 1.3 million that's set aside for future funding changes. And we've talked about this many times, but it's primarily preparing for that Blue Ribbon Commission on special ed and the adjustment that is looking like it's coming for that. And we've estimated the 1.3 million would cover the loss in revenue for 1 year. So it's a short-term solution for that. And then our unassigned account, overspending by about 1.4 million, again, utilizing fund balance. And the district does have a fund balance policy that states at a minimum, we would have 2 months of operating expenses in fund balance. And based on this, we would be just slightly above that at 3 months. So the 17.9 million is our ending unassigned fund balance. So then as we look at some of the other funds, so food service, overspending by about 69,000, again, utilizing some fund balance. At this point, we're anticipating the continuation of free meals. We're using some estimates, conservative estimates for reimbursement rates because they have not been released yet. And then we're using our 25-26 participation rates. So this is conservative. We are hopeful that once the rates are released, that they would be better than what we used and can get this one back in line with revenues equal to expenditures at least. And then the community service fund, overspending slightly, about 38,000, utilizing fund balance. The thing with the community service fund is it's largely participant driven and classes are always evaluated prior to being offered. So there's adjustments that happen based on enrollment and demand as we move through the year. And then the building construction fund, which I reported on earlier tonight. And here, the beginning fund balance is 0 because we had hoped that we would have this account closed out by now, but some of the projects are just taking longer to ensure that they're done right. So at the revised budget, you'll see the addition coming in of the beginning fund balance. Again, we're planning for the arbitrage payment and then working towards having all these funds spent within 26-27 so that we can close out this account. And then the debt service fund, so these are our debt obligations. The district has 2 of them, the 2016A Build America bonds and then the 2018A Capital Appreciation bonds. And this is where we budget for those payments for principal and interest, and you can see when those final payments are going to be made. The trust funds, so these are our self-funded health, dental, and OPEB account, and they're maintained for a specific purpose and are separate from the district's operating resources. Again, utilizing some fund balance, $341,000 approximately. And then this last slide here is just showing the property tax levy that had previously been approved for the dollars that we get within 26-27. And you can see the total property taxes were a decrease of approximately $400,000. So in closing, the adopted budget reflects a balanced approach to supporting student learning, maintaining operations, and preserving long-term financial stability. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there are.
You used the term conservative during the presentation, so I'm wondering, as you're building out your budget projection and as you model that, what are some ways you use a conservative lens when looking at where dollars fall and what anticipated expenditures might be, and what the gift of that is on the other side when things come in maybe a little bit better than we anticipated?
So I budget for every position that we have on our staffing sheets. Occasionally there are positions that we can't fill or positions that people leave mid-year. So right now I have budgeted for all of that. Otherwise, there are some other areas that I look at like multi-year trend, and I just come up with an estimate because there's nothing better available at this point. So it's really just based on the information I have. Once we get through this fiscal year, I'll have another year's worth of trend that then I can use to do some of those estimates. So often I'll update those within the revised budget. And then right now, I kind of mentioned it, but we have a lot of employment contracts that are unsettled. So I've used estimates on all of those too. So a lot of those things will end up being updated with the revised budget.
I'm looking at the last page of the presentation, and when you're referring to the property tax that we will be leveling across the district, you commented that it's that it's decreased from one year to the other. Are you seeing that particularly in the total based upon state legislation, where it's dropping by $328,000 plus dollars? I mean, that's the biggest spot that it's dropping. So it's dropping by $300,000, and at the same time, it's being spread over a greater tax capacity.
Correct.
So,
and of that 328,000, 296 of it is within the general fund. So there's 32,000 approximately within community ed, but the biggest portion of that is hitting our general fund, yes.
and that's largely due to declining enrollment.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So we're getting less dollars through property tax because we have fewer kids, and that makes sense. And at the same time, the tax capacity of the district's increasing. So it would be very likely that a homeowner would see a decrease in their property taxes, that the portion of their property taxes that are going to the school district. It's not always that easy, but
it is not always that easy, but I would say at a very high level, yes.
yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion on the 26-27 adopted budget.
Zuzik makes a motion to adopt the proposed 26-27 budget.
Biermeyer, second.
Any additional discussion? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for the update and the report. Next on our agenda is the functional morphology curriculum that we received a presentation on last month, so I am looking for a motion on this item.
Michael Mulder moves to approve the functional morphology curriculum as presented.
Can I get a second?
Milner, second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor for approving the functional morphology curriculum, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Next on our agenda, our Director of Teaching and Learning will be joining us again. Am I correct in that? Yep. With our local literacy plan. Oh, I'm sorry. Our presentation. Okay, and it's our curriculum and
literacy and curriculum lead. Thank you, Vice Chair Dressley, directors of the board, Dr. Burkamp-Herman. Thank you. I do get to come back up and talk about more literacy, which is our favorite subject. I wanted to just take a second to share with you our local literacy plan, which has been created to be submitted to MDE for the plan for this coming year for our district. So the purpose of this plan is really in compliance with the READ Act and with other legislation in the past to be able to create a plan that allows districts to think forwardly about what they're going to be doing with literacy initiatives and instruction over the next 12 months. So as we go through this today, the data that we will look at is from this previous year, and then the plan is for the following year. So that is, we'll get to see both of those pieces here. So last year we had our goal of being able to increase the overall number of K-8 students reading at grade level from 60.9% to 65%. And if you look at the bottom there, our outcome was that we ended this year at 65.8%. So we did exceed that goal that we set. And a 5% or a 4.1% increase is an ambitious increase, and we were able to meet that. So working with our MTSS team, and really kind of looking through what would be the plan for this coming year, we set a similar goal for the coming year to go to 70%. One of the reasons that we believe that some of those that a further increase will be possible is it will be our third full year of having full curricular resources at our elementary level. We're also bringing in functional morphology, which you just approved, and so at our 3rd and 4th grade level, we hope to see an increase there. At our middle school intervention, we are planning on seeing benefits there as well. So we are hopeful that doing those things along with the continued coaching and support of our teachers, that we can get to that 70% mark. Universal screeners are our FastBridge and CAPTI tests that Director Hodges talked about earlier. I won't get into all the nitty gritty here, but in K and 1, we take very much more phonological approach to our assessments, and then in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, all the way up, we do much more with fluency, comprehension, vocabulary for those assessment pieces. So as we go through and look at the data here, you'll get to see a little bit of information from each of those screeners. One of the things that our local literacy plan requires is a parent notification plan on how we let parents know. So we do have our fall notification, which goes home at conferences. It's done by interventionists. If a student is identified, they are also given additional information there. One of the things that we began to do this year that we're going to continue to do and refine in the future is we created packets of at-home literacy strategies for parents to be able to use, and we broke them down into specific strands. So if a student was really, if a kindergarten or first grade student was really struggling with phonemic awareness, we gave them 5 or 6 activities that they could do at home to help improve that. If a second or third grader was struggling with fluency, here are a few things that you could do at home to improve that. So every parent got that packet in the conferences with our elementary, at our elementary schools this year. One of the things that we do throughout the year is our ongoing process with our MTSS, students who are identified as needing intervention, which means being, like we said earlier, at some risk or high risk on the FastBridge assessment, are monitored every 6 to 8 weeks. Parents are kept up to date on where that process is by the classroom teacher. We do weekly or bi-weekly progress monitoring of a student's work when they are identified as needing additional support. So that's something that we review very often throughout the year, every 6 to 8 weeks, to make sure that the work we're doing is being effective. This coming year, we are planning on being more intentional with that and having literally sitting down with classroom teachers every 4 to 6 weeks to be able to talk through any students who are not making progress and talking about what are the things that we need to adjust or adapt to the instruction that we're doing, having our interventionists sit on that along with our MTSS team. So that will be able to provide even more support for those students. So this is just a summary of our K through 3 students. The numbers are just our numbers screened in the fall, winter, spring, and those who met at benchmark. I'm not going to get into the fine details there. We talked about before that 65% is kind of where it hovers around. One of the new things this year that MD has required is dyslexia screening. Dyslexia is a pretty hot button topic right now, and a word that I think is thrown around in a lot of different ways that it isn't always completely understood. And so one of the things that MDE has talked about a lot this year is that as a public school system, we do not have the ability to diagnose someone with dyslexia or even to identify them as having dyslexia. So we have talked about characteristics of dyslexia. So when we think about that, there would be some literacy standouts that kind of help identify that. So at our younger grades, one of the things that we assess students on is the ability to read nonsense words. So nonsense words would be 3 or 4 letter words that aren't real words, but phonetically should be able to be sounded out. So if we had a word like N-O-L, a student should be able to look at that and say Knoll and be able to kind of figure out that that's what that word says, even though it's not a real word. And so when we look at our K through 3 students, you'll see that in kindergarten and first grade, we screened all of our students as part of the early reading screener. So that was something that is just automatically done. And then our second and third grade students, students who were again identified as reading at high risk, were given that nonsense word screener to be able to identify whether they showed those characteristics of dyslexia, and you can see it's almost a 100% match. And again, because a student who is struggling with reading does tend to show those characteristics, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have dyslexia. Students who struggle with reading can struggle for a variety of reasons, and many of those reasons overlap with the same things that we see with dyslexia. I know that we're going to continue to have conversations with our literacy cohorts at MDE to be able to talk about what are the best ways to continue to share that information with parents in a way that is not overwhelming or fear-mongering, because we want students to be able to get the support they need, and not every student who is struggling with reading is going to have dyslexia. At our older grades, you can see we were able to just assess those students who were at our highest risk. And again, the same kind of situation where we noticed that students who demonstrate high risk in reading also demonstrate those characteristics of dyslexia. Another piece of this local literacy plan is being able to talk through our curricula that we use. So we've talked about this a lot with you, your group over the last couple of years, but we do have UFly and Hegarty in our KN1, UFly for second grade, and then Wit and Wisdom is a standout through all six of our early grade levels. We also use UFly in third and fourth grade in the small group setting. Our MTSS process for being able to look at the 3 different tiers of support. When we think about tier 1 instruction, that's the instruction that all of our students get throughout the day. We have done a lot of professional development around our curricula that we use. We've also been doing a lot of coaching and support through those companies. So Great Minds, which is the company that Wit and Wisdom comes from, it does 3 times a year comes in and does walkthroughs with us and does coaching support for our administrators to be able to continue to support what does instruction look like in the classroom there. For our tier 2 supplemental interventions, those are done by our classroom teachers, usually 3 to 4 days a week throughout the school day during what we call our win time, or what I need time. And during that time, teachers meet with their small groups at the same time that our tier 3 our highest need students are meeting with their small groups as well. Tier 2 instruction is usually a group of 3 to 5 students. Our tier 3 instruction is 1 to 2 students with a staff member there. We use a lot of assessments. I know we've talked through many different things. One of the big things that's important to understand through the lens of literacy is we have our screeners, which give us, basically allow us to say these students need support and these students are doing okay. And then from the pool of students who need support, we need to get more information. And so that's what a diagnostic assessment is. So we have a variety of different diagnostic assessments which give us more information about a student's phonological needs. It could be a fluency issue. It could be phonics. There's a lot of different pieces there that we have to identify and then decide on how to meet the needs of those students. We have entered into our second year of our phase 1 training. So all of the teachers in our district at the end of this year now who are eligible for phase 1 instruction, and you can see the categories on the left there, all of them have completed our training. We just had our curriculum director complete his training as well. I was his teacher this year. That was a good dynamic for us. But every single teacher was able to complete that and be able to be trained in that. So this coming year is when our phase 2 training will start. This is mainly our secondary ELA teachers, along with the second category there, students who qualify for graduation incentives. So that would be our ALP program. And so the smaller group of teachers there, but they will be going through a program called Strive, which is one of the Department of Education's approved phase 2 training programs. We actually handed out their materials to them before they left for the summer, and they do have the option over the summer to be able to do that training. If they want to get that done all over the summer, they can, so they don't have to worry about it throughout the school year, but we are giving them the full year next year to be able to finish that training. We are also having our secondary admin take that class as well, so that our principals are better trained in the science of reading at the secondary level. So it is our recommendation that we adopt the 26-27 local literacy plan, and it is something that is required through state statute. Questions?
I think it's going to be a comment on the amount of work that's already got in place. So much of what is happening is background for the operations that we have. But looking at how robust it is and the addition of functional morphology, we're not at capacity and we can add that in because of the work that we've done, or are we hovering right where we don't quite have the load bearing capacity to take it on, or we're there because of the legwork we've done over the last 3 to 4 years?
Sure, that's a great question. So when we think about, schedules are always tight, and I think all of us would love to have more time without making kids have to be sitting for more time. But when we put our U-Fly system in K2, that was a 30-minute block of time. That time has been used in different ways in our 3rd and 4th grade classrooms because it's not a whole group class at that point. And so it does allow us to have a 20-minute block now be able to be put in for functional morphology. There are trade-offs, and one of the things that we are making sure that we continue to do is find time for students to have reading at school, like literally sitting down and reading books, because that is such a key part of all of this, and we don't want to take that away. But we were able to have the time in our schedule. As I said before, when I presented on functional morphology last month, our teachers universally want to be able to have this program, and when you have that, they are willing to work and be able to figure out how we can make a schedule like that fit.
Yeah, so my hat's off to the entire department and the work you've done and the collaborative nature, like bringing staff along with you and having a voice in it.
Seeing no other questions, I would ask for a motion on this item.
With gratitude to both the rank and file teachers and the leadership that have gone into the development of the plan, and the paraprofessionals that support it as well, I make a motion to approve the 26-27 local literacy plan.
And I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the 26-27 local literacy plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next up, we have a presentation from Dr. Werkamp-Herman on her superintendent goals for 26-27.
Thank you. Members of the board, I'm going to present again, as I did last week, these goals. I'll go over this a little bit quicker, not quite as in-depth. Just so you know, how we see ourselves in 3 years is our approach to this. Mm-hmm. And where do we want to end up? And we tried to backward design, and we're not quite there, but we're able to start with year 1. We'll see how it goes with year 2 and 3. They're not completely fleshed out, but we have some time to do that. So just know that we've had ongoing feedback and discussion with our full administrative team. I did have a small group of leaders that worked together with me over the course of several meetings to come up with what this looks like. Directors then have taken it back to their departments, formulated 3-year plans to align. Ultimately, what we learned from this process, or maybe reminded ourselves of this process, is the heart of what we do is our students, and it's in the classroom. That is first and foremost. And I linked it to food. I haven't had dinner, so it's easy. What happens in the classroom is the meat and potatoes of what we do. All the other departments support that. That's your desserts and your salads and your sides. Activities that happen after school and in school that support the classroom matter. But the classroom is that core piece. And so that's where we started the focus piece and then built out from there. So we can go to the next one. Clarified that core purpose. We connected it to the core values and the core pillars that are in the strategic plan. And again, identified how every single department and program was going to contribute to that. These are their areas, and you can look through that. We've shown them to you last time. They're not, again, completely fleshed out for 3 years, but a really good starting point. And those leaders have worked with their departments to ensure that those are goals that they can set to meet. So taking all of this work that we've done over the past 6 months is created what I've been able to create my goals and had a vision for those. So my proposed goals for this next year, goal number 1 is to lead the implementation of a district-wide instructional framework by defining and supporting the consistent use of core commitment, strengthening professional learning communities and establishing systems for instructional coaching, peer observations, and instructional rounds to improve teacher practices, enhance student engagement, and increase achievement. We link that to the core values of partnership, equity, compassion, respect, and then the pillars with academic excellence. The second one gives, go back 1 second, please, thank you. Those list the success indicators. We'll use those to judge whether we're making the achievements we're hoping for. The next goal is to advance career pathway opportunities that connect learning to real-world experiences by expanding business and community partnerships, increasing student access to career exploration, much like you're talking with internship opportunities, and work-based learning, and ensuring all students are prepared for future success. Linking that to partnership, voice and choice, innovation, and equity across our core values. And then the pillars, of course, academic excellence along with equity and belonging. And then you can see the indicators that we'll use to determine whether we're successful. The next goal is to provide leadership and oversight to ensure district financial resources are strategically aligned, transparently communicated, and effectively utilized to support the district's strategic plan and improve student outcomes. Obviously, we know from Jen's report that it's hard to manage school finances. We have to work within the dollars that are given to us. And I think we do a good job of that in this district, but we have to always make sure it's a focal point, because if you lose sight of that, it can go a different direction. So go back, please. You can see that the core value it aligns to is innovation, partnership, and equity, and then the pillar alignment is effective and responsive operations. The next slide will show the success indicators that we'll use to demonstrate that we're achieving those goals. Fourth goal is to develop and implement a district-wide communications framework that strengthens transparency, engagement, and consistency through clear systems, strategic storytelling, and messaging aligned with the district's strategic plan and core values of partnership and innovation. Obviously, how we tell our story matters, and how often and in what channels we do that through. And so this will be a lot of work, but I feel if we can be deliberate in this work, I think we can share our story, and who knows the positive outcomes that can come from that. We align that, again, to partnership and innovation on the core values, and then effective and responsive operations. And then you can see the success indicators by which we'll mark whether we're successful. And then the final goal is to strengthen district's ability to attract, support, and retain high-quality staff by developing a comprehensive onboarding program, implementing a standardized hiring process, and establish consistent employee discipline procedures that promote clarity, efficiency, and organizational excellence. Obviously, we don't do this work without people. Staff matter, and we want the most competent and caring individuals possible working for our district, and so this work will help ensure that we get the best candidates and that they stay with us. You saw we had lots of retirements this past spring. Although we hate to see them go, it's wonderful when you see how many actually stayed with us for the length of number of years that they did. This core value alignment is compassion, respect, voice, and choice, and then the pillar alignment, staff empowerment and retention. You can see the success indicators there by which we'll judge ourselves. And so I open this up for any other questions or discussion you might have. I really feel that these goals are appropriate for where we are this time and place. And I do think that this work this year and working with all the teams will continue to help us set goals for the following year, and we'll just build upon those so that we end up with students achieving and enjoying it and engaged and loving what they do here, as well as staff. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Just to comment again, I love how you are projecting the 3-year vision and getting everybody to think about how we are here, we're present in today, but we're also going somewhere. So I just appreciate your intentionality and continuously implementing vision into our staff and our students. So thank you.
Okay, so now I'm looking for a motion to approve the 26-27 superintendent goals.
Milner moves to approve the 26-27 superintendent goals.
Michael Muller seconds.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously, and thank you for presenting that to us tonight.
Thank you.
And now we will have a gymnastics location presentation from our Director of Finance and Operations, Jen Siebert.
Okay, thank you. So the presentation is actually from the work session that we've kind of worked on collaboratively. So you can see myself, Scott, and Trent are all on here. So as the board is aware, we have faced challenges identifying a suitable gymnastics practice facility within Hastings. So we began looking at potential options outside of Hastings to better understand those options and what the impacts would be. I'm kind of combining presentations. There's actually 3 presentations in the same document, and it's available on Board Book, but the most recent one was very consolidated. So I'm just going to pull like little bits and pieces from multiple different presentations. But as we worked to look at available options, we did work with the City of Hastings to see if they were aware of any potential buildings that we could look into. We did put a Facebook post out asking for the community to help come up with potential options. We had worked with a realtor. We've worked with United Heroes League on some options there. We did look into an addition at the Hastings High School and the costs associated with that. We did look at other sites within Hastings, and as a team, we actually went and toured some of them to see if they would meet the needs. We have considered the middle school, continuing at the middle school. However, there are some concerns that are concerns brought forward by middle school staff that how it impacts their day-to-day with the Phi-Ed program. And then we started looking at like private clubs and doing cooperatives. So all of those things have been part of the process. So when we presented on June 10th, it was really about the survey. So Mr. Hansen had sent out a survey to the families that participated, just trying to gauge the interest or the willingness to continue participation if the practice facility was located approximately 20 minutes or 20 miles outside of Hastings. And there were 16 families that were contacted, 15 families responded, so a very high response rate. When we get to the willingness to continue participation, it was really mixed. So as we look at the willingness, like would still participate or likely still participate, there were 4 families, would not participate or likely not participate 6, and then unsure there were 5. And then as we looked at the preference for the location, Farmington had 4, Eastview 2, either 2, unsure 3, and neither 4. So based on that, at the time, there was a recommendation to utilize the Farmington Gymnastics and Cheer. They had sent us a lease agreement for $10,000 for the season. We talked about transportation and the possibility to explore using some of the district vans. We do that for some other sports. So at the June 10th, we had made the recommendation to the board that we would partner with the Farmington Gymnastics Center. And, you know, like the basis of it was that it would allow us to continue offering gymnastics as a school-sponsored activity while securing a facility that met the program needs and that it was financially responsible. So kind of going back even further, we had utilized the Armory through the National Guard for many years, and then they had some changes and were no longer available. That space was just no longer available, but that was about $3,000 for the lease. So looking at this $10,000, it was still within that range. Some of the other areas that we looked at were considerably more expensive as we looked at adding on, or, you know, like facilities within our district, they were millions and millions of dollars. So Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else you want me to touch on, but that was basically the presentation last time.
Thank you. And is there any additional comments or questions on that?
I think,
Director Milner?
sorry, I know that I have one other piece here that we did at one point, let's see, is it? I'm trying to find the piece because we had looked at the participation, and the gymnastics program is unique in that it is middle school students. A good portion of the team is middle school students participating. And I know it's in here somewhere. Let's see. Sorry. I guess I don't have it handy, but I do know that we provided it at one point.
I was just going to say that some of the communication we've gotten is assuming that there hasn't been a lot of looking into other spaces. And I just want to commend you and your team because I know I sit on the committee. I know how much you have looked. And it hasn't just been since I've been on the board. It's been even prior that this has been looked at and looked at and looked at. And the cost of some of those other things you brought forward, I mean, they're just not feasible. And would we love to keep it in Hastings? Yes, of course. That was why you looked there first. So I know we have a lot of healthy families here in the room with us that are hoping we can make a different decision. But you guys have exhausted a lot of opportunities. You have looked, you have searched, you have done a lot of work and a lot of legwork. And yeah, I mean, there's no way I don't want gymnastics to end. That's not an option. These families are important and what they do is important. But the viable options within Hastings are just not great options.
Yeah, it saddens me. I mean, we started talking about this. I got on the board in 2023. And we were talking about it almost immediately. Decisions aren't always easy, and I try to look at things in a perspective of I want to keep this moving, and I remember having a personal conversation with Shane, you know, because I'm like, God, this would be the great way to do it. And, you know, I've even personally had conversations with multiple people on this, and it's amazing to me how we have no options here. Or we have one option to maybe stay where we're at, which we've been told on many ends isn't a workable situation anymore. I don't like making these decisions. We have to be financially sound. I just, the transportation piece of it to me, I think is something that can maybe be looked at and can maybe be visited. I don't know. But, you know, I remember the theater was like $93,000 a year. I'm just amazed we don't have a facility in this town besides the one they used to have and lost in 2012, unfortunately. It's just a decision that I think with the equipment and facilities situation, I just think it right now is the best temporary solution as we continue to try to find a long-term solution. And, you know, I don't like where this is at, but I just think right now it's the best way to go. And I want everybody to know this has not been talked about and then forgotten about. And I don't know what the communication has been like for the families. I don't know that, but I know we have talked about this many times, and this has been brought forward. And I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe this is the best facility to be at right now. And we have to keep working on trying to get this back in a local setting. But yeah, not a fun day, but that's it. I'm going to be honest of where I'm at, and that's the only thing I can be.
Thank you.
And are we still looking at transportation options? Or is the option that we're approving tonight with no transportation?
I think the option for the location is separate from the transportation decision.
Yeah, and I just echo the sentiment that's already been talked about. This is not an easy decision. I was a gymnast. I love gymnastics. I would love to hear your comment, but we can't take comment. I understand how practically this stinks for teachers, for families, for staff, for the students. As many comments as we got from parents, we also got tons of comments from staff on how it's just completely pinching them. And that's really hard for us too, obviously, because our primary focus is trying to make sure we're offering the best opportunity we can for the students during the school day. Not saying that we don't care a lot about sports, but it's just a balancing. And I'm just kind of saying that because this has kind of been my balancing act too. And then when we talked about the financial options, it's like if we were if the state schools were in a better financial position, it would maybe be a different conversation about what we could do here in Hastings. And I think that conversation will continue a little bit. This would also be a different decision. So I just want to give a heartfelt sentiment to everybody. We understand how, and it's crappy. It's crappy for us too. But yeah, I mean, we're happy to have conversations around it if anybody wants to call us and everything, but there's been hours of conversation. This isn't just a quick decision. And we've tried to work our best to make sure that we're doing our best to have communication sent to everybody and collect information collected from everybody involved in this. So, yeah.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so I just want to mention that we have the most significant challenge that we face is the impact that it has on our students at the middle school. And for the past several years, we have made the vote to keep it at the middle school, and that has affected middle school's ability to deliver a required component of their curriculum there for physical education. So that's where I'm kind of it's hard to balance, because also extracurricular activities are very important. I don't want to use Mark's term, we're not ogre hating or gymnastics hating ogres.
Yeah.
We love gymnastics, and we want gymnastics to stay in Hastings and that to still be a high school sport that's offered. And at the same time, we have to balance what's best for all students and our main goal, which is to fulfill our academic mission and support the educational needs of students. So at this time, I would request a motion on this item.
Zuzik makes a motion to approve the 2026-27 gymnastic location to be Farmington's gymnastic and cheer facility.
Thank you, and can I get a second on that motion?
Brunswick second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you for giving the presentation again, Director Subert. And now, next on the agenda is the personnel report for Kennedy Elementary fourth grade teacher. Can I get a motion? Wait, one. Okay.
It's
Okay.
unanimous for everybody.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion on that piece.
Michael Mulder moves to approve the personnel report for Kennedy Elementary.
Milner seconds.
Any discussion? And just for the public, this was, it's in statute that all board members present have to vote in favor of approving a teacher that's related to a board member by the 4th degree. So that's why we're re-voting on this specific 4th grade teacher approval. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
And I'll be an abstention.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, that's all right.
Yep. Yep. And now we move to the resolution calling the general election, and I'm looking for a motion on this item.
Suzik makes a motion to approve the resolution to call the 2026 general election and waive the reading of that resolution.
Michael Mulder seconds.
Any discussion? Okay, and can I get a roll call vote on this? Director Milner?
Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
Director Michael Mulder.
Aye.
Director Zuzik.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner, aye.
And so the resolution carries. And now we're looking at the resolution to approve the 2026 Community Education Census certification. Can I please get a
Michael
motion?
Mulder moves to approve the resolution of the 2026 Community Education Census Certification, waive the reading.
And Director Milner, can I get a motion, or can I get a roll call vote on this?
Need a second?
You need a second. Yeah.
Yep.
Biermeyer seconds.
Any Now can I get a roll call vote on this?
Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
Director Michael Mulder.
Aye.
Director Zuzik.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner, aye.
Sorry. The motion carries, and now we move to the resolution to approve the 2026-2027 Minnesota State High School League membership. Can I get a motion on this?
Michael Mulder moves to approve the Minnesota State High School League membership and resolution and waive the reading.
Can I get a second on this, please?
Zuzik seconds.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can I please get a roll call vote on this, Director Milner?
Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
Director Michael Mulder.
Aye.
Director Zuzik.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
Director Milner, aye.
Motion carries unanimously, or the resolution carries unanimously. And now I'm looking for a motion on the resolution for the donations. Oh, I'm sorry, for Site Logic.
Michael
I'm looking for a motion for the Site Logic contract. Thank you.
Michael Mulder moves to approve the Site Logic contract, and yeah, we don't have to waive the reading.
Milner seconds.
Any discussion on this topic?
Glad it's here.
Okay, so seeing none, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. And now I'm looking for a motion on the resolution for the donations.
Zuzik makes a motion to accept the donations and waive the reading.
Michael Mulder seconds.
Any discussion? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead.
Just a thank you for the nearly $40,000 in monthly donations.
Thank you for that. And now can I get a roll call vote on that, Director Milner?
Director Biermeyer.
Aye.
Director Michael Mulder.
Aye.
Director Zuzik.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dressley.
Aye.
Director Bruns.
Aye.
And Director Milner, aye.
Motion or resolution carries. And so now we're going to go ahead and talk about our future meetings. We don't meet again as a full board until July 15th. And we only have a joint powers committee meeting in between now and, or what is it? No, I'm sorry. Yes. Yep, I'm, okay. 7:30 in the morning. Yep. So a joint powers committee meeting in between now and then, so we won't have a whole lot of committee updates for our July meeting. I do want to make one comment. Director Milner had brought to my attention the new students weren't put in the handbook, but since we voted on accepting those students, is everybody okay with me adding them on there before we post the handbook on the website?
Yes.
Everybody's good? Yep. Thank you very much. And that's it. The meeting. Oh, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Milner seconds.
Does anybody want to discuss this further? Okay, then the meeting is adjourned at 8.